Hey everyone, welcome back. It's another edition of the Pick Six. I'm your host, Wobby, inside TCO Studios at the TCO Performance Center in Eagan. Draft week is here. We made it. The draft is coming up in a few days, and we have a few questions to answer. So let's get to work. Question number one comes from Chris in Fowler, California. Do you believe the Vikings will draft more than one offensive lineman? Yeah, that wouldn't be a surprise this year for the Vikings to take multiple offensive linemen in the draft, and it's not about what is on the Vikings roster, it's about the strength of this draft class. It is a top-heavy in terms of talent offensive line class, but it's also a deep class. I think you can find talented players who can help you out early in their careers, second, third, and middle rounds of this draft. Remember, two starters right now on the Vikings offensive line, Brian O'Neill and Pat Elflein, neither one of them were first-round picks, so you can find good players in the middle rounds. Question number two comes from John in Burnsville. Should the Vikings value a position somewhat higher if that position is likely to be depleted sooner? Yes, I think you do value a player in a position that you think is thin a little bit higher than you normally would. This may not factor into the initial grade on the player, but if you're considering multiple players who have similar grades, and one of those players is playing a position where the depth is not very good in the draft, you might elevate that player over the other ones. Question number three comes from Chris in San Diego, California. With limited cap space, could you see the Vikings trading some of this year's picks for picks next year to save money? Now, the Vikings do a really good job of managing their salary cap, and they will always leave room to sign their draft class. So I do not see the Vikings giving away picks this year to save money. Next question comes from Justin in Waconia. We didn't make the playoffs last year, so shouldn't our schedule for 2019 have been much easier than it is? Games at Kansas City, the Los Angeles Chargers, and Seattle, tough. Yeah, that is tough, but there are no easy schedules in this league. Every game is a tough game. That means every schedule's a tough schedule. Remember though, the schedule is formulaic. Who you play and where you play them is determined ahead of time and is not based on the previous year's results. The Vikings finished in second place in the NFC North, so they're playing all the other second place teams in the NFC. No easy games in this league. Next question comes from Jeff in Sacramento, California. So many great matchups on our schedule. I'm leaning toward the Chargers game as my favorite. Any games you're circling? Nice to get a Thursday home game for a change. Skull. Yes, the Vikings do have a Thursday home game. That's against the Washington Redskins. It'll be a fun one. Adrian Peterson coming back to US Bank Stadium. Maybe Case Keenum coming back. Kirk Cousins against his former team. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. But the one I'm circling is later in the season, Week 16, Monday Night Football, Green Bay Packers. That's going to be fun to watch. The last question comes from Bill. I am eagerly anticipating this year's draft coverage. The only thing I find more enjoyable than your interviews with our picks is the phone call they get on draft day. Hi, this is Rick Spielman. Has to be an unbelievable experience. Yes, it is, and we'll be in the draft room capturing those moments once again, so make sure you stay tuned to Vikings.com and all the Vikings social media platforms all throughout the 2019 NFL Draft. We'll have a crew, including yours truly, in Nashville, plus a full crew here in Eagan covering the draft and bringing you all the news and updates. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Pick Six. We'll be back next week with a post-draft edition of the Pick Six, and we're also going to think about sending you a Pick Six from Nashville. So send your questions into the email address at the bottom of the screen, and maybe you'll be in next week's edition of the Pick Six.